Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Munmun Bhattacharya. Coming up in the next hour. Israel-Gaza war enters day 19. Hospitals in Gaza run only emergency services as fuel runs out. Lorries carrying aid queue on the Egyptian side of the Rafah border crossing. Wait to be allowed entry. Israel denies visa to top UN official, threatens to expel hostile UN officials over UN chief's remarks. Guterres clarifies his statement was misrepresented. Russian lawmakers approve bill to revoke ratification of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Bill now awaits Russian president's nod. India announces resumption of visa services for Canadian nationals from the 26th of October. S&P Global Market Intelligence forecasts India will outpace Japan as the second largest economy in Asia by 2030. Indian Cabinet approves Memorandum of Cooperation between India and Japan on Japan-India Semiconductor Supply Chain Partnership. As the Israel-Hamas war intensifies, the Israeli military has accused Iran of having ordered recent attacks by Tehran-backed militias in Yemen, Iraq and Lebanon. Here's a report. The war between Israel and Hamas entered its 19th day on Wednesday and is the deadliest of 5 Gaza wars for both sides. The Israeli military accused Iran on Wednesday of having ordered recent attacks by Tehran-backed militias in Yemen, Iraq and Lebanon and said Israel was jointly monitoring the region with its US ally.
Iran helped Hamas before the war directly with training, supplying weapons, money, technological know-how. Even at these moments, Iranian aid to Hamas continues in intelligence and incitement on the networks, in encouragement all over the world, in incitement against the state of Israel. In the Middle East, where the couriers, the proxies, as they are called by Iran, operate from Iraq, Yemen and Lebanon, the instructions come from only one place, from Iran.
Israel's military intensified its bombing of southern Gaza overnight.
Fuel will not enter the Gaza Strip. Hamas used the petrol for its military infrastructure. Fuel that Hamas stole from UNRWA should be taken back from Hamas and given it to the hospitals.
India has expressed concern over the Israel-Hamas war. New Delhi said it stands in solidarity with Israel against terrorism, but warns that the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is equally alarming.
India has always negotiated two-state solution to the Israel-Palestine issue, leading to the establishment of a sovereign, independent and viable state of Palestine, living within secure and recognized borders side by side in peace with Israel, taking into account the legitimate security concerns of Israel. Towards this, we reiterate the need for an early resumption of direct peace negotiations.
The head of Lebanon's Hezbollah met with top leaders of the Palestinian militant factions Hamas and assessed what their alliance must do to achieve victory for the resistance in Gaza. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim joined 16,000 pro-Palestinian supporters in capital Kuala Lumpur to condemn Israel's barbaric acts in Gaza and denounce its Western supporters. Many world leaders have already called for a halt to fighting to allow aid into the besieged enclave. On Wednesday, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan also called for an immediate ceasefire. French President Emmanuel Macron met with Jordan's King Abdullah II in Amman in an effort to prevent regional escalation. Munmun Bhattacharya's report for DD India. Wednesday is day 19 of the Israel-Hamas war. There have been more than 7,000 casualties on both sides. The United Nations has called for an immediate ceasefire as hospitals started shutting down in the Gaza Strip because of a shortage of fuel.
Don't be scared. Your family is safe. Civil defense personnel told the father under rubble in Gaza while being rescued. This is just one. There are thousands of such stories of rescue and survival. These parents tied blue and white bracelets on the wrists of their children. This is their way of recognizing their children if something happens.
I have seen bodies ripped apart. If something happens and they are in pieces, this way I will recognize them from these bracelets. I will collect their parts.
Hundreds of such families have taken shelter in these refugee camps in Khan Yunis. Everyone has a story to tell. The United Nations says there is clear violations of international humanitarian law in the Gaza Strip.
The situation in the Middle East is growing more dire by the hour. The war in Gaza is raging and risks spiraling throughout the region. Divisions are splintering societies, tensions threaten to boil over. At a crucial moment like this, it is vital to be clear on principles, starting with the fundamental principle of respecting and protecting civilians.
The International Monetary Fund also raised concern about the loss of lives in the Israel-Gaza war and the destruction of economic activity. Israel has imposed a total cease on Gaza. Countries have engaged in diplomatic talks focused on movement of humanitarian aid to the enclave. Some consignment of trucks have reached, while many of them are stuck in Rafah, the main crossing in and out of Gaza that doesn't border with Israel. Abhishek Bose for DD India.
A top Israeli official has said that Qatar is playing a key role in finding humanitarian solutions and that its diplomatic efforts are crucial in the Israel-Hamas war. After a meeting with Turkey's foreign minister, Qatar's prime minister said there has been some progress on negotiations over release of nearly 200 people held hostage by Hamas. Turkey's foreign minister warned that an Israeli ground operation in Gaza will lead to a massacre.
A ground operation on Gaza will turn this violence into a full-blown massacre. The measures that can be taken to stop the war and the attacks on civilians are an emergency.
Qatar, in coordination with the United States, is mediating talks between Hamas and Israeli officials over the release of hostages.
First of all, regarding the progress on the hostages negotiation, it's still ongoing. We have seen some progress in the past few days with the release of the first two Americans and then the release of the two women two days ago with the mediation of Egypt as well. I think that if we compare where we started and where we are right now, there is some progress and some breakthrough, and we will remain hopeful. The negotiations are still ongoing.
My colleague Amritpal Singh joins us from Jerusalem, Israel. It is day 19 of the Israel-Gaza war. Amrit, what are you hearing on the impending ground invasion by Israel? It's been some time we've been hearing about it. And are there any updates that you have on negotiations on release of hostages?
Well, first on the impending ground assault. Well, Israel has made all preparations for ground assault. It's massed its troops along the border with the Gaza Strip, its tanks, its artillery guns, heavy military equipment, etc. to go in. But it is not easy to go in for two reasons. One, the Hamas is not as weakened as yet. They have military might, they have have more military superiority over Hamas and can go in anytime they wish to, but it will lead to heavy casualties, both on the side of the civilians in Gaza, because Hamas are guerrillas. They wouldn't shy away from using civilians in northern Gaza as targets. Secondly, for Israeli forces as well, there will be huge casualties on the Israeli side. They tried to breach the fence last night, and they were rebuffed. So their military strategy is to weaken Hamas by aerial bombarding as much as they can, and once they are considerably weakened, then go in. One is that, and the second reason is the international pressure bearing upon them not to go in. So Benjamin Netanyahu has a tightrope walk to do here, because the sentiment in Israel is go in, finish them, and perhaps for the stated objective of decimating them completely, they'll have to get into close combat. They have a tunnel, network of tunnels. They cannot, do it alone by air bombardment. But preparations are in place. It depends how coming days unfold. On the ground invasion. On the hostages bit, Qatar, negotiations with Qatar are going through. Qatar's foreign minister, who's also the Prime Minister of Qatar today, made statements saying that we are in negotiations. He did not make a categorical statement as to when the hostages will be released, but he said that there are ongoing negotiations and things are not where they were earlier. If you listen to Khalid Zaldan, he says that the demand of the Hamas is that you stop aerial bombing or you stop bombing altogether and we'll release hostages, which Israel is not amenable to. So clearly, some back and forth has to happen, some negotiations have to happen, and Qatar is playing an important role in that. In fact, the Israelis admitting themselves that Qatar is playing a very significant role in getting the hostages released.
Right, Amrit. In recent days also we've seen that some vehicles carrying aid have been allowed into Gaza to bring vital supplies, but aid agencies say it's nowhere near enough. How critical would you say is the humanitarian situation in Gaza?
The humanitarian situation in Gaza is very bad. It's getting bad by the minute, not even by the day. There is a huge shortage of food, fuel, medicines, water, clean drinking water. So there is a humanitarian catastrophe that is unfolding there. Now, the agreement between US and Egypt was to allow 20 trucks per day. The UN says, the UN aid agency says the requirement is about 200 trucks of aid inside. But that's not the agreement. In fact, even only on 2 days have 20 trucks passed. The aid going in right now is a trickle. That is why you see the UN, time and again saying that, and also world leaders who are coming into Tel Aviv, trying to press upon the Israeli government that more aid needs to go in, because there's a humanitarian or a human tragedy unfolding there.
Also, Amrit, the controversy over UN chief's remarks on Hamas snowballed, leading to a clarification from him. Has Israel responded to the final clarification?
No, it hasn't. Israel expressed its displeasure on the UN chief's remarks, saying that he's siding with terrorism and murderers, and that his statement was unbecoming, and in fact calling for his resignation. The UN chief hit back by saying, look at my statement. I have said that Hamas cannot be justified. All Palestinians are not Hamas, but the horrendous acts of Hamas also do not justify the disproportional retribution by Israel. So basically, the UN chief's statement, the clarification is that I have been pressing on both sides to work towards diffusing the crisis. But the anger that exists in Israel, on the streets of Israel. I talk to common people. So Benjamin Netanyahu is under considerable pressure to be seen as acting, and therefore the sort of angry reaction to the UN chief statement one saw from Israel, with Eli Cohen, the foreign minister, even cancelling his meeting with the UN chief, and Israel deciding to not issue visa to the UN aid chief. So clearly there is anger, but I guess it'll now that the clarification has come, in days to come it'll soothe the ruffled feathers. But right now Israel has expressed its strong displeasure.
We leave it at that. Amritpal Singh reporting from Jerusalem on the Israel-Hamas crisis. Still to come on DD India News Hour, an analysis of the Israel-Hamas war as it stands on its 19th day today. Russian lawmakers approve bill to revoke ratification of Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Bill awaits Russian president's note. Japan's apex court rules against surgery for gender change.
अब क्या देख रहे हो पापा?
तुम कहते हो ना कि स्टॉक मार्केट में बहुत सोच समझ कर इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए, बस थोड़ा सा ज्ञान ले रहा हूँ।
किससे?
हर एक स्टॉक्स एक्सपर्ट है, मस्त एजुकेशनल वीडियोस बनाता है और अच्छी इन्वेस्टमेंट की टिप्स भी देता है।
पापा इन वीडियोस पे ना जाएं, अपना रिसर्च खुद करें या सेबी रजिस्टर्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजर से संपर्क करें। एजुकेशन के नाम पर कुछ इन्फ्लुएंसर्स अक्सर इन्वेस्टर को मिसगाइड करते हैं, नुकसान आपका होगा।
सोच कर समझ कर इन्वेस्ट कर।
तुम्हें पता है इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए एक इन्वेस्टर प्रोटेक्शन फंड होता है IPF, लेकिन अगर तुम्हारा ट्रेड एक्सचेंज पर एग्जीक्यूट नहीं हुआ या फिर कोई गारंटीड रिटर्न्स वाली स्कीम है तो ये IPF आपकी मदद नहीं कर सकता है।
और अगर आपका ब्रोकर ही डिफॉल्टर बन जाए तो
फिर IPF आपको कॉम्पेंसेशन दिला सकता है।
कहाँ से सीखा?
NSE की साइट पर।
सोच कर समझ कर इन्वेस्ट कर।
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has rejected accusations by Israel that in a statement to the UNSC, he had justified attacks by the Palestinian militant group Hamas on Israel. Speaking to reporters at the United Nations, the UN chief said that he was shocked by the misrepresentations of some part of his statement. Listen in.
I am shocked by the misrepresentations by some of my statement yesterday in the Security Council, as if I was justifying acts of terror by Hamas. This is false. It was the opposite. In the beginning of my intervention yesterday, I clearly stated, and I quote, I have condemned unequivocally the horrifying and unprecedented 7 October acts of terror by Hamas in Israel. Nothing can justify the deliberate killing, injuring and kidnapping of civilians or the launching of rockets against civilian targets. End quote. Indeed, I spoke of the grievances of the Palestinian people. And in doing so, I also clearly stated, and I quote, but the grievances of the Palestinian people cannot justify the appalling attacks by Hamas, end quote. And then I went on with my intervention referring all my positions on all aspects of the Middle East crisis. I believe it was necessary to set the record straight, especially out of respect to the victims and to their families.
There you heard from the United Nations Secretary General, the top UN official in New York, saying to the media there that his statement on the Israel-Hamas skirmishes have been misrepresented because he was just trying to diffuse the situation and putting out facts as they stand from both sides. Let's take this up and also further analyze the situation as it stands on day 19th of the Israel-Hamas war. To talk about that and more, we are joined, as you can see on the screens, by Ambassador Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti. His former secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs India and former Deputy Chief of Mission Tel Aviv. Ambassador, welcome to DD India News Hour. The diplomatic row between the UN and Israel has gotten bigger. We just heard from the UN Secretary General. His final clarification has also come in. How do you see this escalation and where do you see this headed?
Of course, this had to happen because of the statement that the UNSG made. And Israel, I suppose, is in no mood to accept criticism at this time when it has suffered such a massive and barbarous terrorist attack. And there is no mood in Israel to go into what everybody talks about as the root cause, etc. But that's there. I mean, in the sense that there is a history to all this conflict. But then I think the UN Secretary General said some things that obviously created misunderstanding and of course provoked Israel into saying whatever it said. And then the UN Secretary General had to come and sort of rectify or whatever, give an explanation. Look, he obviously has a difficult job in trying to balance his statements between the Israelis and the Palestinians. So I think this is something that will pass. I mean, I think they have both made their points, etc. And this is becoming, apart from the actual conflict where physical damage, etc., is being done and people are dying, it's also become a very largely a propaganda war as to who did what and who started it and what's the background and what, that the Palestinians, via the Hamas have been provoked, etc. So this is becoming a very complicated and complex issue. But there should be no doubt that Hamas, what it did, I mean, we can discuss why it did it, but what it did and is unpardonable, and it has to be condemned. And I think that most of the world has realized that, and they have condemned this Hamas attack. But then sometimes you have to go back and say, why did this happen? There are so many reasons why Hamas did it, and I don't want to speculate here. But the point is that the UN is trying to play a balancing game, and both sides obviously are trying to influence the UN, and the UN itself is divided in the sense that no resolution can pass the Security Council without the veto being exercised by the US in favor of Israel. So I think this is the situation at the moment, and it has to be, the military aspects or whatever the Israel decides to do is a different question. But I think the geopolitics of it and the discussions that have been taking place in the UN is, of course, I mean, that won't affect, I think, the ultimate decision that Israel makes.
Right.
With the support, obviously, of the Muslims.
Tensions seem to have only come to a head with this because there are reports that suggest that at least 2 phone calls were made by the UN chief, but they were not attended to by the Israeli Prime Minister since the October 7th. So this is not a one-off incident. Now, meanwhile, are we in the final stages of the countdown to a ground invasion by Israel into Gaza? Because some analysts think that Israel may be hesitating on its ground offensive because of the complexities that are involved with urban combat. And I was earlier talking to Amritpal Singh, a reporter, who said that Israel's strategy has been to weaken Hamas leadership through bombardments first before moving in with the ground invasion. What do you think?
I think a full-scale ground invasion is probably not in Israel's interest, and I think the U.S. administration and President Biden have also been, I think, for trying to persuade Israel, don't do it. and don't try and occupy Gaza again, because Israel was in occupation of Gaza, and they left Gaza in 2005, removing all the settlements and all the Jewish, Israelis who had settled there in different sort of, settlements. So I think Israel will have to think twice, and Israel may be thinking that instead of occupying Gaza, it might be better to do some coordinated and precise action by security forces, particularly the commandos and the others, to target the Hamas, which I think Israel is prepared to do, and I think they will do it. And Hamas, they have declared that their goal that Hamas will have to eradicate Hamas. Now, obviously, it's a tall order. How do you eradicate Hamas? You may eradicate their leadership, but what about the ideology? You cannot eradicate the ideology. And there will be many more who will come up and take over that mantle of the leadership or the ideology of the Hamas. Because it's a problem it's a long-standing problem. It's nothing, it's not been solved. The two-state solution that the UN had proposed in 1948, and the Arabs sort of refused to accept it, which I think was a fatal mistake. If they had accepted, then today we wouldn't have had that problem. So I think it's not going to go away very quickly. And neither is Israel prepared to sort of make concessions, nor the other side. So I think we are going to see a lot more violence and a lot more sort of protracted kind of negotiations. If it happens at all. But today, I think what will happen is, I think the immediate prospect of the war spreading into other areas is I think worrying.
Right, I was coming to that because we've seen the various skirmishes that have happened between Lebanon and Israel as well, and we've seen the crossfire that has happened between Syria and Israel too, and there have been fears that the violence could escalate to different fronts. Hamas, Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad leaders also met at an undisclosed location. Do you think there's a real threat of this conflict widening and engulfing the region to an extent?
Well, it will happen through these kind of Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad and other actors, non-state actors, as we say, in Syria, etc. But I think Israel is quite capable of dealing with them. They have done it before. And the point is that they do not have the capability to defeat Israel. And I think that is a little bit of a surprise, because they know that they will not win, yet they keep trying, which only shows their desperation, in the sense that they have been trying to, for an independent Palestine for so many years, and they simply cannot be doing. And they also feel that the Palestinian Authority, which is the legitimate authority representing Israel, is unable to do anything to go back to the two-state solution. And Israel has been nibbling away at the territories in West Bank, particularly. So they see it as a, make or break event, in the sense that if we don't do it now, then then we will never achieve our, independent Palestine. So there's a lot of desperation and in this whole effort, and of course egged on by Iran, and which is also committed to wiping out Israel from the map of the world, and also that they felt that that Israel was getting away with a lot of things that they didn't like, and this was and also that the fact that the Abraham Accords was, normalizing relationships between Israel and the Arab countries. So the Palestinian cause was kind of seen to be sliding down in priority. And it was, so they had to, I think one of the things was that they had to ensure that through these barbarous, terrorist attacks and all these things, sparking off the conflict, brought back the Palestinian cause onto the international stage.
Right.
Whether that will help them in solving any issues is a different question.
Right. We leave it at that, Ambassador. Thank you so much for joining us with your perspective on day 19th of the Israel-Hamas war. Still to come on DD India News Hour. India announces resumption of visa services for Canadian nationals from the 26th of October. Indian Cabinet approves Memorandum of Cooperation between India and Japan on the Japan-India Semiconductor Supply Chain Partnership. And S&P Global Market Intelligence forecasts India will outpace Japan as the second largest economy in Asia by 2030.
अब क्या देख रहे हो पापा? तुम कहते हो ना कि स्टॉक मार्केट में बहुत सोच समझकर इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए। बस थोड़ा सा ज्ञान ले रहा हूँ। किससे? हर एक स्टॉक्स एक्सपर्ट है, मस्त एजुकेशनल वीडियोस बनाता है और अच्छी इन्वेस्टमेंट की टिप्स भी देता है।
पापा इन वीडियोस पे ना जाएं, अपना रिसर्च खुद करें या सेबी रजिस्टर्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजर से संपर्क करें। एजुकेशन के नाम पर कुछ इन्फ्लुएंसर्स अक्सर इन्वेस्टर को मिसगाइड करते हैं, नुकसान आपका होगा।
सोच कर, समझ कर, इन्वेस्ट कर।
तुम्हें पता है इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए कि इन्वेस्टर प्रोटेक्शन फंड होता है IPF, लेकिन अगर तुम्हारा ट्रेड एक्सचेंज पर एग्जीक्यूट नहीं हुआ या फिर कोई गारंटीड रिटर्न्स वाली स्कीम है तो ये IPF आपकी मदद नहीं कर सकता है।
और अगर आपका ब्रोकर ही डिफॉल्टर बन जाए तो
फिर IPF आपको कॉम्पेंसेशन दिला सकता है।
कहाँ से सीखा?
NSE की साइट पर।
सोच कर, समझ कर, इन्वेस्ट कर।
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. A recap of our top stories. Israel denies visa to top UN official, threatens to expel hostile UN officials over the UN chief's remarks. But Guterres clarifies his statement was misrepresented. Russian lawmakers approve bill to revoke ratification of Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Bill now awaits Russian president's note. India announces resumption of visa services for Canadian nationals from the 26th of October. Russia has passed a law revoking ratification of Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, the CTBT. The Upper House Federation Council unanimously approved the bill after the Lower House, the Duma, passed it last week.
Amid the current situation in West Asia and the Russia-Ukraine war, Russia's Upper House Federation Council has approved the decision to withdraw from the landmark agreement outlawing nuclear weapons tests, the CTBT. The Upper House of the Federation Assembly approved the law by 156 votes to 0 after the Lower House, the Duma, passed it last week. Before moving to vote, Federation Council's Speaker, Valentina Matvienko, said that Russia is concerned for international security.
We are witnessing how recently the West has been gradually destroying international law step by step. They are trying to replace it with the law of the strong, and the rest are asked to simply humble themselves. Russia has advocated and advocates the creation of a real system of functioning international security, united and invisible for everyone on new fair principles.
Russian President Putin urged lawmakers earlier this month to make the change in order to mirror the position of the United States, which signed but never ratified the CTBT. During the voting process, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov also commented on US, for which the relevance of such treaty is in question itself.
You have all heard and know that literally on the day this law was adopted by the State Duma, a so-called chemical explosion was carried out at the US Nevada site. That is an explosion using chemicals announced by the United States as an event to test the reliability of relevant protocols and relevant equipment. But it was undoubtedly a political signal. We must be vigilant, and as our president said, if the United States moves towards the start of full-scale nuclear test, we will have to respond in the same way here also.
The Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, or CTBT, prohibits any nuclear weapon test explosion or any other nuclear explosion in the world. The treaty was open for signature in September 1996 and has been signed by 187 nations and ratified by 178. India too is not a signatory and believes that the current format of the CTBT is discriminatory. Akriti Bhandari for DD India.
Japan's Supreme Court has ruled that the law requiring transgender people to undergo sterilization surgery in order to officially change their gender is unconstitutional. The Japanese law says people who want to change their gender must present a diagnosis of gender dysphoria and meet 5 requirements. While rights groups welcomed the landmark verdict, the claimants' lawyers argued that 2 of the requirements violated their client's constitutional right to pursue happiness and live without discrimination. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. Chinese President Xi Jinping held talks with visiting President of the Republic of Colombia, Gustavo Francisco Petro Urrego, in Beijing today. Petro is the first foreign head of state that Xi received after the 3rd Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation. Greece opened Maria Callas Museum, a glimpse into opera diva's life. The museum marks the 100th anniversary of Callas's birth and displays items such as her prescription glasses, designer shoes, bags, and even a hair sample. Chinese Premier Li said that the country is willing to continue to enhance political mutual trust with Kyrgyzstan, strengthen the alignment of development strategies, and seek more convergence points of mutual interest for mutual achievement during his meeting with Kyrgyz Prime Minister Ekhalbek Japarov. Mexico's Acapulco is bracing for a hit from Hurricane Otis as residents stocked up groceries and supplies such as torches, foreseeing possible power outages from the Category 5 storm. Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar called on Saduray Zaparov, the president of Kyrgyz Republic. They discussed cooperation in banking, energy, health, pharmaceuticals, defense, agriculture and investments. Dr. Jaishankar embarked on a 2-day visit of Kyrgyzstan to attend Shanghai Cooperation Organization Heads of Government meeting. India has resumed select visa services in Canada from the 26th of October. In a latest announcement, the Indian High Commission in Ottawa said that the High Commission and the Indian Consulate Generals in Toronto and Vancouver decided to resume visa services for 4 visa categories: entry, business, medical and conference. It said emergency situations will be addressed by the High Commission and Consulates General. The Indian government has approved a memorandum of cooperation between India and Japan on semiconductor supply chain partnership, recognizing the importance of semiconductors for the advancement of industries and digital technologies. Memorandum of cooperation will remain in force for a period of 5 years. Cooperation aims to advance resilient semiconductor supply chain and leverage complementary strengths. It will improve collaboration, leading to employment opportunities in the field of information technology. India has become an increasingly attractive location for multinationals across a wide range of industries. That's what US-based global ratings agency Standard & Poor's Global Market Intelligence has said in its latest report. Here's more.
With an expanding consumer market and a large industrial sector, the Indian economy is set to surpass Japan by 2030. As per the S&P Global Market Intelligence, India will continue to be one of the world's fastest growing economies over the next decade. The report also suggests India's nominal GDP will rise from $3.5 trillion in 2022 to $7.3 trillion by 2030, making it the second largest economy in the Asia-Pacific region.
The first time when India added 1 trillion, it was in 57 years. The next time 1 trillion added in 7 years. Now every 3 years is adding 1 trillion. And our objective is that this 3 years addition of 1 trillion could actually come down to 2 years. If we are able to do that objective, I think the prognosis to a larger incremental size of the economy in the next 20 years is perfectly possible.
India is a favorable place for important long-term growth markets in a wide range of industries, including manufacturing sectors such as autos, electronics and chemicals. The nation's rapidly growing domestic consumer market is another key accelerator for the economy. The IMF in October 2023 also revised India's growth estimate to 6.3% in 2024 due to resilient domestic demand and strong investment inflows.
The growth rate that they see now and projections of the growth rate that they see for the next 5-6 years, and that's saying quite a lot, is more or less very stable. In the world economy now, it's very difficult to get any large-sized economy where the growth rate is going to be so stable. That is what is attracting investors.
As per the report, the Indian economy has continued to show sustained growth despite high base year effects. The long-term outlook for the Indian economy is also supported by a number of key growth drivers, including the middle class, which is helping to drive consumer spending. The rapid growth of e-commerce and the shift to 5G smartphone technology will also be a boost to homegrown unicorns. S&P Global has also predicted that India's GDP will surpass Germany's by 2030. By the end of 2022, India's GDP had already become larger than the GDP of UK and France. The expansion of public digital platforms and path-breaking measures such as PM Gati Shakti, national logistics policy, and production-linked incentive schemes will give an immense boost to India's overall growth.
PM Swanidhi scheme launched by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2020 is a microcredit scheme for urban street vendors which provides collateral-free loans up to $601.35, that is 50,000 Indian rupees. A recent research work by the Indian Central Bank titled PM Swanidhi, Strengthening Country's Social Fabric Through Empowering Grassroots Market Mavericks has analyzed the transformative impact of PM Swanidhi.
So I think this Prime Minister Swanidhi scheme, which was launched during the COVID time, is a very interesting proposition because it incentivizes the entire structure of loan taking and loan repaying, because if you pay the first loan, you get double the amount of the second loan. If you pay the second loan, you get 2.5 times that of the second loan. So in effect, actually, what is happening is that we can see that the ratio of those people who are actually taking the second loan out of the first loan and the third and the second loan is actually progressively going up. This means that people are very conscious of having a better credit history so that they can get integrated into the banking system.
The United States Republicans have selected Mike Johnson as the next Speaker nominee in a secret ballot vote. Republican Tom Emmer dropped out of the race just hours after he was selected as the latest GOP nominee. Mike is the fourth nominee put forward after 3 others failed to win enough support from colleagues and the second nominee of the day. Johnson was selected after 3 rounds of voting. The House has been without a speaker and has been unable to pass bills since Kevin McCarthy was ousted on the 3rd of October. We'll take another break at this point in time. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Australian bowlers put Netherlands on the mat as Australia thrashed Netherlands by 309 runs in an ODI World Cup match in New Delhi. Goa is all set to host the Indian National Games for the first time starting 26th of October. Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou make grand arrivals in Riyadh ahead of a blockbuster bout.
अब क्या देख रहे हो पापा? तुम कहते हो ना कि स्टॉक मार्केट में बहुत सोच समझकर इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए। बस थोड़ा सा ज्ञान ले रहा हूँ। किससे? हर एक स्टॉक्स एक्सपर्ट है, मस्त एजुकेशनल वीडियोस बनाता है और अच्छी इन्वेस्टमेंट की टिप्स भी देता है।
पापा इन वीडियोस पे ना जाएं, अपना रिसर्च खुद करें या सेबी रजिस्टर्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजर से संपर्क करें। एजुकेशन के नाम पर कुछ इन्फ्लुएंसर्स अक्सर इन्वेस्टर को मिसगाइड करते हैं, नुकसान आपका होगा।
सोच कर समझ कर इन्वेस्ट कर।
तुम्हें पता है इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए एक इन्वेस्टर प्रोटेक्शन फंड होता है IPF, लेकिन अगर तुम्हारा ट्रेड एक्सचेंज पर एग्जीक्यूट नहीं हुआ या फिर कोई गारंटीड रिटर्न्स वाली स्कीम है तो ये IPF आपकी मदद नहीं कर सकता है।
और अगर आपका ब्रोकर ही डिफॉल्टर बन जाए तो
फिर IPF आपको कॉम्पेंसेशन दिला सकता है।
कहाँ से सीखा?
NSE की साइट पर।
सोच कर समझ कर इन्वेस्ट कर।
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. Sri Lanka's cabinet has given approval for waiver of visa fees for tourists from India and 6 other countries. Sri Lanka's tourism minister, Haran Fernando, on Tuesday said that apart from India, tourists from China, Russia, Malaysia, Japan, Indonesia and Thailand will benefit from the pilot initiative. The pilot project is to run until the 31st of March 2024 and aims to amplify Sri Lanka's tourism appeal. In the current year, Sri Lanka has welcomed more than 1 million tourists by September after the economic crisis had dented the industry. India leads the pack with more than 200,000 arrivals, closely trailed by Russia, as per data from the Sri Lankan Tourism Development Authority. The air quality of Delhi was recorded in the poor category for the third consecutive day as the average air quality index stood at 238 on Wednesday. Monitoring agencies say that any significant improvement is unlikely over the next few days. The Graded Response Action Plan, or GRAP, has been implemented in Delhi, but experts say that it will be effective only after proper implementation.
Even despite implementing the graded response action plan, sometimes for few days there might not be perceivable change in the concentrations in air, and air quality still would be either poor or very poor. That is what is happening these days. One major reason is the interventions whichever we have in GRAP has to be quantified better. So this points out that maybe the GRAP has to be quantified better and some activities have to be moved in a different bin. Also, this GRAP should be implemented for the entire Delhi's airshed.
Time now for all the sporting action. In a remarkable World Cup match, Adam Zampa's exceptional performance with 4 wickets played a crucial role as Australia secured their biggest World Cup victory by defeating Netherlands by 309 runs. Australia chose to bat first with David Warner leading the way with an explosive start, striking 4 consecutive fours against Aryan Dutt. The Australian innings saw a remarkable display of power hitting as Glenn Maxwell blazed his way to the fastest World Cup century in just 40 balls. However, Logan Van Beek struck again, taking back-to-back wickets by dismissing Glenn Maxwell and Mitchell Starc. Pat Cummins concluded Australia's innings with a boundary. In the end, Adam Zampa's crucial wickets ensured a dominant victory for Australia in this World Cup match. Goa is all set to host the Indian National Games for the first time. The Games will be held in Goa from the 26th of October to the 9th of November. Goa has made extensive arrangements in the run-up to the grand opening ceremony that will witness Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurating the sporting extravaganza. Suchitra Bharadwaj reports.
The 2023 National Games of India will be held in Goa from October 26th to November 9th, 2023. This will be the 37th edition of the National Games, and an estimated 10,000 athletes will take part across 43 sporting disciplines. India's prestigious multi-event sporting showcase was last held in Gujarat in 2022. The prestigious event, which has attracted over 7,000 sportspersons from across all states and union territories, has also included new sports like beach football, rollball, golf, sepak takraw, square martial arts and pencak silat as medal categories as part of the government's endeavour to give fillip to traditional Indian sports. The National Games will be held across 5 cities in Goa: Mapusa, Madgaon, Panjim, Ponda and Vasco. Multiple venues throughout Goa will host the various competitions. Cycling and golf, however, will be held in New Delhi. Goa has made extensive arrangements in the run-up to the grand opening ceremony that will witness Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurating the sporting extravaganza at the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium in Fatorda on October 26th. Goa will host the National Games for the first time. In the previous edition hosted in Gujarat, the Services Sports Council Board emerged as champion, representing the Indian Armed Forces. They secured 128 medals, including an impressive 61 gold medals.
After a long wait, Goa is finally hosting the National Games for the first time. This edition is going to be bigger, with more than 10,000 athletes participating in 43 sports. We will also see the debut of some new sports in this edition. So the next 2 weeks are going to be super exciting for the sports lovers. With camera person Sumit Dhiman, this is Suchitra reporting for DD India from Goa.
Ngannou is preparing for his boxing debut, taking on undefeated heavyweight world champion Tyson Fury in Saudi Arabia on Saturday. To many boxing fans, he is a completely new face with an unknown backstory. But for Ngannou, this fight is just another step on a remarkable journey. More details in the next report.
World heavyweight champion Tyson Fury is ready to put on a show on Saturday night when he takes on MMA heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou in Riyadh.
At this point, I'm aware of my lack of experience in boxing, so it was very important to take any advice or any knowledge that I will need in order to win this fight. And we all know that Mike Tyson is someone that we don't have to introduce him anymore in the boxing world. He's the man. Basically, the profile was the perfect one. He's the guy that always fight people that are taller than him, just as I'm going to do in this fight.
Although Fury's title will not be on the line, the crossover event is not an exhibition bout, but instead a professional fight with 10 rounds of 3 minutes scheduled in a regulation ring to be scored by judges using the 10-point system.
Well, I'm very excited. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and very glad because as I said again, the organization, the welcome, and everything been very warming. You know, the care that they've been taking of me and my family, the attention and everything, it's been quite great. So I'm very happy about that.
Fury was expected to defend his title against Ukrainian unified heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk for the undisputed crown. However, when talks broke down in March, the Gypsy King announced the lucrative Battle of the Baddest in Saudi Arabia.
I feel absolutely fantastic. Cannot wait to put on a show on Saturday night. This is unbelievable. What a turnout. Fantastic. TVs, massive TVs everywhere. What a show. Only show in town. Tune in.
While Fury has not boxed since defending his title against Derek Chisora 10 months ago, Ngannou's last appearance in the octagon came in January 2022 when he defeated Cyril Gale to unify the UFC Heavyweight Championship before leaving the promotion.
Manchester City will look to maintain their 100% winning record in Champions League Group G when they take on Swiss side Young Boys, but the European champions will have to contend with an artificial pitch at the Wankdorf Stadium. City midfielder Jack Grealish had suffered a dead leg in a win over Sheffield United in August, which kept him out of 2 games last month. Since his return, the England international has struggled for game time, starting on the bench in City's last 4 Premier League matches. Barcelona is ready to face Shakhtar Donetsk. Coach Xavi Hernandez warned on Tuesday that Barcelona cannot use their injury crisis in the upcoming league game against Real Madrid as excuses for a poor performance in a midweek Champions League clash against Shakhtar Donetsk. Barcelona top Champions League Group H with 6 points after winning their first 2 games without conceding a goal. Portugal's Porto sits second with 3 points ahead of third-placed Shakhtar on goal difference. In La Liga, champions Barcelona are third in the standings, trailing leaders Real and second-placed Girona by 1 point. AC Milan will make the trip to the French capital to take on Paris Saint-Germain in the 3rd game of the Champions League group stage campaign on Wednesday night. For Milan, the mission is simple: to try and put the 1-0 defeat to Juventus on Sunday behind them by getting a first win in Europe in 2023-24. But it is far easier said than done against a PSG side that is stacked full of talent. That's all then in this edition of Read India News Hour. But do share your thoughts with us on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Unun Bhattacharya from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.